We all know that person, 35 years old, still living like they're 19. While their friends have built careers, families, and taken on responsibilities, they remain stuck in the same cycle of video games, parties, and emotional dependency. Nietzsche might say they failed to become who they are, trapped in their own immaturity. The Peter Pan syndrome isn't just a pop culture term. It's a real psychological phenomenon that's shaping a generation of men who refuse to grow up. Today, we're diving into the chasm between eternal youth and true maturity, and why this issue is quietly wreaking havoc on men's lives in modern society. The concept of the man-child, popularized by the fictional figure of Peter Pan, the boy who refused to grow up, represents a psychological phenomenon that's becoming increasingly common in our culture. Coined by psychologist Dr. Dan Kiley in 1983, the term Peter Pan syndrome describes adults, predominantly men, who exhibit a persistent inability to take on the responsibilities of adult life, clinging to childish behaviors and attitudes, even after reaching physical maturity. This phenomenon didn't arise out of nowhere. Our culture of constant entertainment and instant gratification has created fertile ground for this syndrome to thrive. With youth glorified by the media and consumerism, encouraging the pursuit of immediate pleasure, many men find themselves stuck in an existential limbo. Biologically adults, but emotionally frozen in a perpetual adolescence. As Aristotle might describe it, a state where knowledge exists without the wisdom to apply it. The signs are easy to spot: avoiding long-term commitments, whether professional or romantic, an inability to plan for the future, emotional or financial dependence on parents or partners, and frequent reliance on escapism like video games, alcohol, or other distractions to avoid confronting the demands of adult life. It's what Plato might call being prisoners in the cave, content with the shadows of reality, afraid to face the true light of maturity. Psychologist Carl Jung would describe this phenomenon as a failure to integrate the archetype of the puer aeternus, the eternal youth, with the senex, the wise elder. When a man remains solely identified with the puer, he retains youthful spontaneity and creativity, but lacks the stability, responsibility, and wisdom that the senex provides. It's an archetypal imbalance that prevents the full development of personality. The roots of this behavior often trace back to childhood. Patterns of overprotective parenting, where children are shielded from facing consequences, or the opposite extreme, emotional neglect that forces a child to develop rigid defense mechanisms, can set the stage for this syndrome. As Nietzsche would say, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." But when deprived of age-appropriate challenges, these men never develop the resilience needed to face the adult world. The consequences of this syndrome are devastating, both for the individual and their relationships. The man-child often experiences a profound sense of existential emptiness, what Viktor Frankl would identify as a crisis of meaning. Without constructing a mature life narrative, he remains in a state of practical nihilism, filling his days with distractions devoid of a greater purpose. What Nietzsche might call the last man, content with small pleasures, incapable of aspiring to greatness. In romantic relationships, the pattern is especially damaging. The man-child doesn't seek a partner, but a surrogate mother, someone to care for him, make decisions for him, and tolerate his irresponsibility. As Freud might analyze, it's a fixation on the oral stage of development, where the individual expects to receive without giving in return. This imbalance inevitably leads to resentment, conflict, and, ultimately, the breakdown of the relationship. Contemporary society, particularly in America, has inadvertently enabled this condition. Late-stage capitalism, with its focus on endless consumption and entertainment, has created what philosopher Byung-Chul Han might call a society of positive performance, where we're encouraged to seek constant pleasure and avoid discomfort at all costs. "Why grow up when you can just level up?" has become an unspoken mantra for many men who prefer progress in virtual worlds over the real one. Technology has drastically amplified this problem. Online gaming, easily accessible pornography, and social media offer limitless escapism, alternative universes where the man-child can exercise control and competence he hasn't developed in real life. As Marshall McLuhan observed, we shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. And these digital tools are shaping a generation of men disconnected from tangible reality. The economic impact of this syndrome is significant. Men who can't hold stable jobs, manage finances, or invest in their future often face chronic financial insecurity. As Thorstein Veblen might note, they engage in conspicuous consumption without the corresponding productive capacity. A mismatch that breeds anxiety and dependency. Statistics show that men with this syndrome are more likely to face serious financial problems after the age of 40. The path to overcoming Peter Pan syndrome involves what Jordan Peterson would call confronting chaos, voluntarily facing responsibilities and challenges as a way to develop competence and meaning. It's the process Joseph Campbell described as the hero's journey, where the protagonist must leave the comfort of the known world to face trials that will fundamentally transform him. Cognitive behavioral therapy has shown particular effectiveness in addressing this condition, helping individuals identify and challenge dysfunctional thoughts about responsibility. As Aaron Beck, the founder of this therapeutic approach, would say, it's essential to recognize the negative automatic thoughts that perpetuate immature behavior and replace them with more adaptive perspectives on adult life. Philosopher Kierkegaard might offer another perspective: the necessity of a leap of faith into the ethical stage of existence. The man-child is stuck in the aesthetic stage of life, seeking only pleasure and novelty. Maturity requires a conscious commitment to values and responsibilities, even when they don't offer immediate gratification. A profound existential leap into a deeper way of being. For society as a whole, recognizing and addressing this issue is becoming increasingly critical. Educational programs that emphasize practical life skills, intergenerational mentorship, and meaningful cultural rituals marking the transition to adulthood are potentially valuable interventions. As anthropologist Victor Turner might propose, we need to re-establish the rites of passage that traditionally marked and facilitated the transition into male maturity. Parents play a fundamental role in preventing this syndrome, the approach that Winnicott would call the good enough mother. Neither overprotective nor neglectful, allows a child to gradually develop autonomy and responsibility. Setting clear boundaries, allowing natural consequences for actions, and modeling healthy adult behavior are essential strategies for raising emotionally mature children. Now, I want to invite you to take a moment of reflection, pause, and honestly consider these questions, not for judgment, but for genuine self-awareness. Think about the major decisions you've made in the past 5 years. How many of them were proactive choices aimed at personal growth, and how many were simply reactions to avoid discomfort or responsibility? As Sartre would say, we are condemned to the freedom of choice. But are you truly exercising that freedom? Look at your closest relationships. Do you consistently see yourself as the one receiving support, or as the one offering it? Is there balance in that dynamic? Jung reminds us that individuation requires integrating all aspects of the self, including our capacity to care for others, not just to be cared for. How much of your weekly time is dedicated to activities that produce tangible results versus purely escapist activities? I'm not suggesting that entertainment is inherently problematic. Balance is key. As Aristotle would argue, virtue lies in the golden mean. If today you lost access to all your usual distractions, whether games, social media, or any form of passive entertainment, what emotion would surface first? Anxiety? Boredom? Nyandi? Emptiness? That response might reveal a lot about your relationship with your own inner development. Finally, imagine yourself 10 years from now. What version of yourself would you like to meet? What achievements, skills, and character qualities do you hope to have developed? As Nietzsche might ask, are you building the bridge to your own overman? That higher version of yourself? Or are you just treading water in the same place? These aren't questions meant for immediate answers. They're seeds for ongoing contemplation. Write them down. Meditate on them. Let them become part of your internal dialogue. Because, as Socrates wisely said, the unexamined life is not worth living. If this video touched on something you recognize in yourself or someone close to you, consider sharing it. The first step toward any change is recognizing the problem. Leave a like to support content that tackles deep psychological issues like this. Subscribe to the channel for more insights into human behavior and personal development. And don't forget to share your experience in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to start their own journey of growth. Remember, your engagement not only helps this channel grow, but also expands the reach of these valuable insights to those who need them most.